I don't have a lot of confidence in the longevity of it because it delaminates between the water coming down, and it does last a long time if it's maintained properly. It's sort of like relationships. If you maintain it properly, do a good job of maintaining it, it can last a long, long time. I prefer screws. I know a lot of guys prefer nails. Cedar tends to be a little fuzzier. It might last longer, but you need to maintain it paint wise. You will have more maintenance on T111, sealing the lap joints, and not as much as Masonite. Masonite's the absolute. It's cheaper, but it's a terrible. I don't even know if they sell it anymore. But T111's pretty good. It'll withstand the rock and hail damage. It has a specific look. It lends itself to what is the word? It looks budget conscious. But if you do some exterior things like nice looking plants around and shutters and really pretty trim, and maybe even do anything to pull away from the basicness of that siding.
Isn't T111 heavy? Are there any issues with adding extra weight to the walls?
Yes. But T111 has different thicknesses, different depths. The really good T111 is really heavy. Are you asking me if you can put it on a mobile home? Yes, you can. You'll want to take off the metal that's there, or the masonite that's there, or the vinyl siding that's there. Is it enough weight to make a difference on a mobile home? Not really. So I'm going to say no. It's not a problem. Now, on a house, it certainly isn't a problem because you're sitting on block on the outside of the house. Generally, it's not a problem. I would even the best stuff, which is quite expensive, really thick. But they make a real inexpensive thin T111. I think it would probably be longer lasting than vinyl if you maintained it properly.
Can you put it over the vinyl can you put the vinyl over the metal siding?
Of a mobile home, yes. You sure can. I think I have a video doing that, but I've done it many, many times, and it does fine. I use screws again, so that where the laps don't fall out exactly where the random way that they frame mobile homes. I'd use a wafer-headed screw, a metal screw, and it holds it down. It does. You can't to get away from the oil canning vinyl siding, which is caused by expansion in the heat. Makes the material grow, and it ends up wrinkling the vinyl siding a little bit. You wouldn't want to run your screw all the way down, or your nail. That's why they have slots where that nail goes. It's not so like, okay, you can just be anywhere in here. The reason it's there is to keep allowing that expansion and contraction of that vinyl siding to slide on that nail or the screw. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a little bit of oil canning, which is wrinkling. It's not usually a big deal. But yes, you can go right over the top of that siding that's there, but you won't be able to do that with T111. And then finally, hardy board. It used to be that hardy board lap siding was competitive price wise.
You don't have to remove the metal. It won't hurt the walls.
No, it will not. And again, the metal acts as your vapor barrier, which you would have to put up if you put vinyl siding. It's already doing the job of exterior siding. It certainly will do the job of condensation. So yes, you leave the metal there and it will not hurt anything. And I've got houses that I've done for 25 years ago that way. Never had a problem with that. Is there anything unique about going around windows? Is unique, but when you're doing vinyl siding, you run into a lot of odd situations. Vinyl siding was used to cover a lot of rinky-dink makeshift work, and it makes it look way better when you put vinyl siding over it. So yeah, I mean, it's nothing unusual that a vinyl siding guy wouldn't have already seen. Finally, there was a hardy board on here. I've done hardy board on houses and mobile homes. There's a lot of weight on that also. Hardy board is probably the longest and the toughest, longest lasting and the toughest of them all. Hardy board, I have used the regular 4x8 sheets. I've done it with the plaster and with the T111 real thin, not very deep profile. The hardy board will last a long, long time, provided you paint it. And guess what? The paint lasts a long, long time. There will be some maintenance around the edges wherever you make a cut through it or along the bottom edge. It does not hold up well if the water gets to an unpainted area. It does not hold up well if you don't get the edges sealed where water might get in there, and if it's touching the ground, it will not last. I promise you, it will not last. It's not cheap, but it is probably the longest and most durable of all of the sidings. There is one other siding out there. It's sort of like a chipboard that I don't remember what it's called. I did some a higher end of it called diamond coat siding. It's very expensive, and it looks like it's got a wood grain look on the outside of it, but it's chipboard. The same kind of chipboard that you would put like OSB on the roof or the flooring inside a house. It's got big chips and everything, but man, that stuff's durable. It's hard to cut, and it looks really good. I have some on one of my mobile homes. It's doing pretty well. It's only been there for 6 years. So it was left over, and they wanted me to throw it away. So instead of throwing it away, I recycled it, and it looks pretty good. It's really dark brown. They have some lighter colors. It's really long lasting. It's not as expensive as Hardy board, but I just don't think it will last as long as Hardy board will. Both of them require making sure any cracks are sealed as time passes, caulked up and then touched up. Hardy board, even vinyl siding. There's a lot of things that, people think vinyl siding, I don't have to work on it, sort of like driving your car until it breaks down. They don't think about it until it's already done some damage. But yes, all your siding requires maintenance. There's just nothing that you work with that doesn't require some kind of maintenance.
If you put vinyl siding over metal, do you cut off the little drip edge gutters off?
No, that little fake, let me see if I can figure out how to answer this. On a mobile home, that little drip edge is it's not really a very good gutter because it fills up real quick. What it's really doing is say, hey, that's a gutter. No, what it's really doing is holding the metal roof on your mobile home. So when you tell me you have that little drip edge slash gutter, you tell me you have a metal roof over that home. Because if it was shingles, it would have a soffit over it, and you wouldn't have that issue. So if you take that off, a good wind will come along and just pull it off, peel it up like a can of sardines. And I'm not going to say it's impossible to put back on, but it's definitely a Humpty Dumpty situation. I've had to work on houses that had a small section of it peeled up. But when I first got up here to Arkansas, that roof was gone. It was laying in the field. And there was nothing but rafters, and part of the insulation was out. So no, you need to leave. You can cut it off, but you need to leave all those screws that are holding it there. They're not necessary for it to be held there. It is holding that roof on the outside. There's a few staples that they use to hold it there until they get the gutter on. But the gutter is on there finally to hold that metal on, particularly going down the road. But, high winds and everything, you don't want to you can cut that off where it's flat, but do not unscrew it because that part that's holding that metal roof on, you want it there. And by the way, a lot of those gutters are rotted through, so I can understand, or filled up with stuff. They're not doing their job. I understand why you want to cut it off. But make sure you leave the part that holds the metal roof on. And you got written here, why should you look at the trades? Why should you look at the trades for a career?
No, that's another topic. Don't go down that.
Okay. I was going to talk about vinyl siding and other siding. Somebody else got a question?
Yeah, what was the brand of insulated vinyl siding for mobile homes that you recommend?
I used a company called K-Can. Spelled with a Kaykan. They have a brand called Monticello. That was for the vinyl log, and they also have an insulated vinyl siding. K-Can's really inexpensive comparatively, or they were. I guess I should at some point talk to them and get a display from them. and talk about their prices because they beat Lowe's. Lowe's doesn't have much in the way of choices, even if you consider ordering, and they're higher. Lowe's is higher, Home Depot's higher. So you go to all the vinyl siding people that sell vinyl siding, and they're all making pretty good money. Yeah, K-Can was probably the most competitive, period. And it's very noticeable how much their prices are cheaper. So K-Can is where I was getting the insulated siding. At one point, I used another company, and it wasn't log siding, log insulated siding. It was another one.
Ed Trumbull said he was just looking at their website and it looks nice.
Yeah, it's really. I think I have videos on doing that on a mobile home. And by the way, it's not like you have to, buy it all at one time, although it generally not going to get cheaper. You might do one side at a time. Go from, oh, and by the way, when I should say, I just got reminded of something. There's another siding that you can put on houses and mobile homes, and that is the log siding that you make. They run through a mill, a planer, and turn it into a log. Yes. So you can do that to a mobile home right over top of the metal or right over the masonite, which is what I did. And then we stained it. Enough so that I was so impressed with that I looked into what it would cost to buy a mill where I could buy the 2x6s and push it through. And then have another business, maybe have somebody just sitting around making log siding at some point. But that is a log siding. Really cool. It's about $3,500 to $4,000 to get the bits and the planer that can handle that. There's videos of them doing it if you want to see how that's done. But you can buy it. There's a place not far from here. I don't remember what it was. It was $3 a square foot, something like that. But closer into town, it was higher. But it was still reasonable. So you might look into that too, a real log siding. And it did have an insulating property. But I will say this, a year later, since we've done it, some of the logs have peeled out, and we're going to have to cut that section out, put in another piece, and that kind of thing. I installed all of it with screws, and I used the log, one of them to go on the corners. I think I've got videos on how we did that. So you might think about that if you want to do that. It might actually be quite a bit cheaper than log cabin insulated siding. The log insulated log siding. I think it's going to be at least half as much. Just something to think about. Other siding. When you start thinking about siding, I did a lot of plaster in Florida, in Texas, and you do that on block wall generally, but you don't have to. You can be doing it on metal stud. You can be doing it, which I did for Disney. I think I did some for MGM. But we did a lot on houses, and I did some here in Arkansas. When I couldn't find supplies for it, they said, no, that's a dying trade. Well, if you're building houses out of block, it's not a dying trade. You're still going to be using it. So now that'd be Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, across the south there. They're gonna have less trees, and they're gonna try to build houses out of block, and then you're gonna put plaster on the outside of it instead of having to look at that block all the time. Is there another choice after that? Yes, you can do what they call an EIFS system, which is it's exterior insulated finish system. So that actually is foam, and it has a coating over it, usually an 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch thick. And then you put a color on it, and that color can have a worm finish. It can be a sand finish. It has choices, not a lot of them, and it has a lot of different colors. The big mistake that I see in commercial and in housing when it comes to EIFS systems is that you're supposed to back wrap and you're supposed to seal very well at the top. Those are two fatal flaws. Now, why am I saying it? But it's because what back wrap does, you take that foam, you put the glue slash, not really glue, it's the same kind of finish that you would put on the final before you put the color. It's like a real thin plaster, but it comes in 5-gallon buckets, so it's got chemicals in it. Use that same to stick the foam to the backside to the wall, and you put a screws to hold it. Hopefully, you hit something good, and it holds it there. And it makes dents in that foam, and then you cover it all over smooth. And well, you're supposed to put what they call back wrap. You put a coating of that around the bottom edge or the top edge, whatever the outside edge that it's going to, and you take the mesh that you're going to put on all the way over the top, and you just put it on there and then screw it to it. So that's hanging there. When you get ready to do the final coating on it, or the base coat, you fold it over into that base coat, and you put the mesh over the whole thing, and you fill all the mesh holes with it, and then you let that dry, and then you do whatever colors you're going to put in there. Now that foam can be in the shape of a castle. I mean, you can draw it, they can cut that foam out, and you wrap it up nonetheless. Another one I've been seeing them do with EFA systems is not putting any mesh at all. Here's the problem with that. If you don't back wrap, it will tend to pull off of that on the edge. If you don't put the mesh on, it will absorb water into that foam, and it will rot out whatever it's connected to. A lot of times exterior drywall or plywood. It will rot it out, and then it will run down the wall and rot out the bottom of the framing. It will do it. It's not, maybe it is going to do it if you don't put that mesh on there. The next worst thing is not putting a good top and keeping it sealed on the top. There's a cap that goes over for the fake fronts on homes, and particularly on commercial buildings. If you don't make sure that's maintained, it runs water behind it, rots it all out. Finally, this is something I've been seeing a lot. The commercial buildings, motels and such, they hire painting contractors to come along and paint different paint colors, which now it's like dark colors and weird things like that. And you talk to the painting contractor, which I have, was like, hey, you do know that EFA system is meant to breathe in and out. If you put paint over it, it voids the warranty, which is usually 30 years. Okay? And he goes, oh, no, the paint doesn't do that. So what happens is 10 years later, that foam ends up not being able to wick out the moisture that's inside of it. And guess what? That it builds up condensation inside that foam. It's got nowhere to go. It's not breathing anymore. It runs down the foam and rots out the building. There's a ton of companies making a bunch of money just going back and fixing that stuff. But it takes 10 years for you to figure it out. That company's already out of town, or, been sued by somebody else and they're out of business. Sort of like your shingle roofing companies. By the time you go get your warranty back out of those people, they're already gone. So it is really cool. To get back to plaster, which goes, you can put mesh over anything and put plaster on it. And I say, I've done it on solid steel. I've done it on metal stud, or I've done it on, I've used diamond lath. I've used diamond mesh lath. I've used K-lath. I've sprayed on plaster, and I've put it on by hand. You can actually put on multiple colors or layers of plaster that have color in it that you mix into it, and then it's got that color in there. But what you do, 3 colors or 2 colors minimum, you can then cut with a pattern, or we actually made a pattern. You can cut brick into that plaster. So you would have the regular gray without any color as your base coat, and you go over it with a yellow and a white mix, or a yellow and a light brown, or what you want to do, red and mixtures of black or dark browns into it. And you just kind of skip it into it. Then when you cut your grooves in, it shows the gray just like it would in mortar. And so you got color, you got a brick. But it takes somebody that has some experience doing that. I don't think that's cheap. I think that's expensive too. Long lasting, yeah. A long lasting plaster is. The enemy of plaster is water getting behind it. There is other siding out there, but we're getting into some pretty obscure things like the gunite sprays on top of you know balloon-like rubber buildings, and then you know they change up the colors, and it's usually a mix that ends up letting that plaster breathe also. So when you paint over plaster, you don't want to totally seal it. It needs to be good paint. Some kind of elastomeric that stretches and tends not to let cracks get in. But you'll have to paint it. It lasts a good long time, but I don't think it lasts as long as Hardy Board does. I'm really impressed with Hardy Board for its longevity. All right?
Would you list them by order of what you think is best to least?
Okay.
With all the different sidings.
Well, some require more maintenance than others, but if I was to go, the cheapy T111, they make some really cheapy stuff. Masonite's the absolute worst. Now, don't get me wrong, Masonite itself can last a long time. You just got to maintain it every year. Go through there and seal up any cracks and paint it if it needs paint. I mean, you keep an eye on it, and it can last a long time. The cheap T111 or cheap wood siding, it's nowhere near as bad as Masonite, but it requires maintenance. And T111, the really good stuff, and I think there's probably 3 levels. You need to keep up with it. Generally, a stain would last longer because it has depth and everything. But you're still going to have to seal up all your edges, and so anywhere water might get in and be in an invasive situation. So your worst is Masonite. Your second worst is the cheapy T111 or the thin T111. Vinyl siding would be the next worst, but also the least expensive. So the really good T111 or just regular vinyl siding, they probably have the same basic cost, and it's more labor on the T1 on the vinyl siding, I think.
Is Hardy Board as good for insulation?
Hardy Board doesn't really function as an insulator. It does add some, probably like an R9 level, because you're lapping over. You're not gaining any insulation. It depends on where you're at, but you can take that metal siding off on a mobile home, or the Masonite off on a mobile home, and put in good insulation. The insulation that they have in those walls, they did the very best they could to make it look as though they put insulation in there. You can take that insulation out and hold it up to the sun, and you can see through it. Okay, so you can take that out and put better insulation in, then do your vinyl siding, and you won't have near the need for an insulated siding. So that's something to think about when it comes to cost. The same with houses in the 50s and 60s. And if it goes back into the 50s, it might not have any insulation in it. I've seen it where they had vermiculite, which is sort of like sawdust. You open up an outlet and a whole pile of sawdust come out of the wall. Talk about flammable. Or absolutely no insulation in there. And then you can blow it. You have to cut holes in the drywall on the inside or holes on the outside and then pump it in. I ought to do that at some point. So I use the same insulated blowers that they have in Lowe's and Home Depot. You can buy the paper and blow it in the walls. There's certain problems with that. I ought to do a video on that. I haven't done that in quite a while. But the insulation if that's your issue, you might consider trying to get the insulation in the walls done. But you do it section at a time. Insulation's not cheap either, but it certainly makes a difference for heat or cold. Yeah. On sound, by the way. I had one couple have me put sound bat because their neighbors were noisy. So I did that, but I'd been telling them, hey, you're going to have to change your windows too. Like, no, we're going to keep our windows. They end up changing their windows because the windows were flimsy. And these people were partying, so the music was coming right through the windows. But it did help. It did help with insulation. It did help with sound.
So you have to cut the drywall and reinstall the new insulation?
When you're talking about blowing in insulation, you cut a hole. And so I did work for the Office of Human Concerns Weatherization Department. How's that for a long name? So they would take people that were lower income, maybe retired, and try to bring their home up to a much more insulated. So we put insulation in the floor, and we'd put insulation in the walls. They were wanting me to put insulation in the walls, try to figure out a way to do it, because they were having problems with it. They're going inside of a house and drilling holes in the wall and then repairing it. It's quite an ordeal for people that might have the house packed full of furniture that you're going to move out and they're living in. You're drilling holes. You drill holes every 16 inches in the middle and at the bottom at the top of the wall. And if there's a wind bracing in, you might end up drilling holes in the middle. So you got all these holes, you're cutting drywall and getting dust over everything. And guess what? Invariably, they were telling me that these people had their whole rooms filled full of stuff that they had to move to get in there. It's like, we'd like you to see if you can figure out how to do the next 2 projects. So what I did was I started taking vinyls. Originally, they said, hey, here's what this one guy said he could do. I want to see if you can do it. And I did it. I didn't like the look of it. But what I did was they make test caps for the drain lines, sewer lines. Whenever you want to test it, see if it holds water to get an inspection, they make a plastic test cap that sticks in a 3-inch line or a 4-inch, but it's called a test cap. So what I was doing was taking a hole saw, like they recommended, and drilling a hole through the siding and then putting test cap over it after I got through blowing in the insulation from the top with a hose until it came out the bottom. Okay. The problem with that, it looks bad with plastic test caps all the way around the house, top and bottom of it. But they were happy to have it. Don't get me wrong, those people were not ungrateful, but I felt bad about it. I told them, so let me come up with something else. So what we ended up doing was the lap siding on usually an older home. We'd pull off a couple of pieces very carefully at the top and pull off a couple of pieces at the bottom and then put it back. Yes, we did have some damage, some broken material. So we just got really good at being careful with that stuff. So, and what I was using was that the blown insulation that you put into attics. And I didn't use the Pink Panther Owens Corning. I used the recycled newspapers, things like that, and it's fireproof and all. I end up using their machine. In order to use their machine, you have to buy, for no cost, you end up buying 15 or 20 bales of insulation. Well, some of the jobs didn't require but 5, depending on where there was one wall that wasn't insulated. It's like, they said, well, we can't let you have the machine for free unless you rent 15. I said, well, what if I just go ahead and buy 15 and then I'll bring back the 10. As long as you don't tell us, we don't care. So I just take it to, every time I got 15 bundles and then return 10, I got the rental of the machine for free. And Home Depot had the similar situation that Lowe's did. Then Lowe's changed their price to, you need to leave a check for a deposit of $250. I said, okay. So I leave a check. And or use a debit card and they charge my account, and I return it back the next day or the day after, and they didn't give me my money back. Take 10 days. Well, I might rent that machine 3 times. They got $750 of my money, and it's going to take anywhere from 10 to 30 days to get back to me. I was like, hey, man, you guys got a lot of my money. Can't you just hold one check and it's all a deposit on me bringing back the machine? No, that's our policy. So I went to Home Depot and I said, hey, let me sit down with you guys. I'll let you hold this check. And if I don't bring it back, you can charge me for it. I said, by the way, I'd like to buy this machine for $250. I was like, how much does it cost to buy? Oh, it's $3,500. And you only want a $250 deposit? Okay. So with Home Depot, I end up, buying thousands of cubic feet of insulation from them. So That's what we did. We ended up blowing the insulation in. And you could do that with a mobile home, especially if you're going to put the siding over it. You'd be drilling a hole or opening up the siding, which might be tricky, and blowing the insulation into the bottom. You have to know if it's coming out the bottoms, but you open up the siding. It'd be messy. But if you use like I was talking about, the test caps for a 3-inch line, and then taking that blower and hose blow in there, it'll come out the bottom. You got it full. I promise you can. But you're going to put test caps. You're going to have a whole bunch of test caps on your mobile home until you put your vinyl siding on. So there's something to choose from. Another siding. I have seen people use slabs of wood that was cut off of logs that they turned into lumber, and they sell it by the truckload. It looks pretty bad. I have seen some better than others, but it is better than having no siding. I have seen, what is the word? I've seen people put plywood up and paint it, just regular plywood. As long as they kept it painted, it looked okay. But it still looked like an unfinished job. But you can also do strips to make it look better. I've seen it. You just got to maintain that stuff because it will delaminate. The layers of the plywood will delaminate. The chipboard will certainly get fuzzy if you don't keep it painted. I have seen people do metal roofing for siding also. I've seen a lot more of that here recently. It's kind of neat. I think if you go at it, break it up a little bit, it looks good. So
I'm gonna ask you, I'm typing this. She says, I manage a mobile home park and have a couple where the heat bill is too high for my tenants because they're older. And I was saying that would probably be the best thing, and then to make sure the underbelly has insulation.
What kind of heat do they have? If it's electric heat, I can understand that. It's gonna be high. People generally want their bedrooms cooler, not warm. Maybe a little electric heater in there, but that's a little electric heater. Plug-in heater is hard on the electrical system, but let's just say that it's not. It's about $40 a month to run all month long. It's about $40 a month per the heater. Your water heater, I'm gonna guess about $40 or $50 a month. So your electric bill can get really high. Now, there's some things you can do. There used to be a secret. Get rid of all your incandescent bulbs and go to LED. Well, now everybody knows you can't even buy the incandescent bulbs
They're
anymore.
on electric.
Electric heat. It's the most expensive heat out there. Go to a vent-free heater and keep the central heat and use the fan to recirculate it.
Gas lines in the park.
Yeah, so might consider getting a propane tank and running propane to it. And then instead of using the electric heat, so I'm going to give you, for instance, and this is something I've got 14 mobile homes in the mobile home park. This is something that run into through the years. Okay. I can't afford to fill my propane tank up. They want $500 to fill it up. I'm going to tell them, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to tell them, I said, I promise you, if you don't fill that propane up and get ready to go through the winter, say $600-700 or something like that, you're going to pay that much for 1 month electric bill. 1 month. And nobody ever listens to me. It's very rare. They have to go through it. They have to go through because it's dead of winter. They'll be having a $450, $500, $600. I have seen $900 electric bills with electric heat. Okay. Generally, we can get through a winter for $500 with propane water heater and propane stove. And yeah. So maybe it might be, if they're trying to get it affordable, I know that you might be able to buy a used propane tank and bring it in. And then depending on who your propane supplier is, they may get fussy about, no, you got to get it from us, or you got to lease it from us. Them delivering that propane and you putting it in is going to save those people money in the first year. In the long haul, there's nothing worse than somebody who couldn't pay their electric bill and or the electric got shut off and they went somewhere else to get warm and the cold comes in and freezes and busts all the pipes. There's nothing more expensive because not only are you fixing the broken fixtures and pipes, you're fixing the cabinets, you're fixing the floors, you're fixing the walls. There's nothing worse than that. Wood heat is not conducive for renting. I know there's some exceptions to that rule, but wood heat is not. So,
Ed Thrumble says, thanks for making these videos. You guys should write a book about mobile home maintenance and repair. I'd buy it.
okay.
And I said, I'm trying to get him to start a course membership site.
What I try to do is share with you guys what I've learned, not only as a maintenance guy or repair guy, but also as an owner. I live in a mobile home. You can't tell it, but I try not to make it look too fancy because I don't want to pay taxes. I pay taxes. I don't want to. So I'd rather not look too fancy. Matter of fact, Christina knows that as my wife. She had no idea who I really was. She had her viewpoints about people who have money. And I'm not claiming I have a lot of it. I put my money away into different things, but she had no idea. So to look at me driving an older truck, which I do because I get the same tax deduction per mile, driving an older truck and as a new one, and I just don't like payments and I don't like paying taxes. So what I'm sharing with you guys is what I've learned. You can disagree and you can become a multimillionaire with other viewpoints. I'm just trying to share with you what I've learned, and I'll be happy to do it. And this is for people that want the help, and that's okay if you don't want the help and you don't agree with me. I don't have a problem defending myself. I know that a lot of people say, well, you should went and spend all this much more money. You know what? I'm working for somebody else. They're the ones that decide what the money is that we spend and what their budget is. Maybe they don't want to, maybe they like a plain looking interior. Maybe they like a specific kind of siding. So one of the complaints I've heard people say is like, hey, you didn't show the whole thing. Well, I'm working somebody else's house, and sometimes they don't want me to do, videos right in the middle of a hurry up job. I'm sorry, but I will have to find, and I discount, I don't charge them for the time that I'm trying to set up and do a video or explain. But I won't go out of my way not to do that. So what I'm sharing with you is where I have the opportunity and where I would be wanting to help somebody. So I try to talk to the camera like I'm talking to somebody I know, and I hope to pass on and help you guys with what I know and share with what I've experienced. Sometimes the experience was not a good experience, but anyway, hopefully. If you guys got any questions along the way that pop up, just call them. It doesn't matter if we've already talked about it. I don't mind talking about it again. It keeps my memory challenged. Again, the siding choices there's a lot out there. Probably the insulated siding is long haul better, but I certainly going to tell you you're going to spend some money. The answer to every question is hard work for me. If I want to get along with Christina, I got to work hard at it. It's just, so, if you want to be successful at anything, you work hard at it. If you want to live a long time, work hard at it. If you want your home to last a long time, work hard at it. Don't look for an easy way out. Life is not a vacation. And if it was, we'd all die early because we never did live and work hard. Enjoy your life, but understand that living hard and not wearing yourself out, but living tough and getting out there and doing it is what's going to make your life is going to be full. And I want you guys to be happy with the progress that you make. And I'm here, the way I get energy in the work that I do, I had to change my mind some 20 years ago because of, I think a guy named Zig Ziglar. He said, the way you get more energy is to tell yourself what you're doing is making other people's lives better. And I was like, well, that's, he's selling stuff. But no, it actually works as a repair guy. You're there to make their life better. And if you tell yourself that, even if it's to make your life better, The reason I'm working is to make someone else's life better. You get more energy from it than saying, man, why is it I'm the guy that always has to fix something that why did it have to break down now? Why did I get a leak? Why did, you're there to make other people's lives better. The people that are living with you or you yourself, you're making your life better. That's what you're doing. You get more energy from that. And that's what I'm doing by doing these videos. YouTube does not begin to pay what it actual. I think we're making a half a cent a view if we're fortunate. Christina's been working at it for right at 4 years. It's going to take a long time to ever pay her what she's worth.
Minimum wage.
So we're doing this. Originally, I started out doing this kind of videos with YouTube because I was outliving my customers. They were no longer, needing my services. So I was like, well, the people I'm dealing with now don't know me. I'll have these videos. How about we do these videos so they can actually not have to take my word for it. They can actually see me doing it. So it was a resume is what I did YouTube videos for, if that makes any sense. Plus we have the website all set up. So you might consider my motives is not about making money when it comes to YouTube. And she certainly is, she's just doing it because she's being nice to me. I think she doesn't want to go back to the nursing home work that she used to do, which, we've been together for like 11 years. And she and I, believe it or not, and I don't need confirmation, but I tell you, we've not had a fight. We've had no argument. So that says something about our relationship. 11 years and no fight. She's been irritated with me, I bet. But we just don't fight. We both like each other and we love each other. And so we're doing this to share in the community. And you guys are welcome to call in and ask questions. I'll try to get to them. And with what limited knowledge I have no motive for any particular brand. Nobody owns me, at least not at this point. If there's a brand out there that starts sponsoring me, it's because I think that brand is legitimate.
We've turned down a lot of opportunities because they were not appropriate for you guys.
Games, video games, I don't need them to sponsor me. Other things such as that. Okay. If I don't believe in it, I'm not gonna say it. I figured this one thing that I think about the YouTube videos is that I think that in the long haul, when I'm gone, my ghost will still be on the internet. So.
And it's evergreen, so.
Yeah, these are the things we're talking about and sharing are things that are going to be used for a long, long time. It's an option. And so I feel like all you guys are my friends. I don't consider any of you my enemies or my objects to take advantage of. I just want to share with you guys what I've learned, as opposed to just dying with it. What am I going to do with that when I fall into a hole and die? Why not share it? Why not be helpful to other people? I believe that somebody's watching me and they look after me because I look after other people. I'm running on and I can do that. All right, we're going to see you guys later. We'll try to come up with another subject to talk about next time.